and I will talk about my favorite topic, jewelry, Ottoman jewelry. As you know, the Ottoman Empire was a very widespread empire, and the empire influenced 3 continents for about 600 years. And the jewelry reflects, of course, their pride, the pride of a dynasty that ruled for 600 years. And as you can imagine, the larger the boundaries of the empire got, the more distinguished craftsmen from all over the world came to the palace ateliers. And this aspect contributed to the synthesis of the Ottoman style, not only for jewelry, but also for all fields of arts. But today we'll talk about jewelry. The treasury remained always in the Topkapı Palace, and this treasury reflects all the characteristics of a widespread empire. And this is the largest one among the Islamic treasuries, because it has always been in Istanbul, in the Topkapı Palace, and it has never been looted in any way. That's why it's still the largest one among the Islamic treasuries. And this is only an example. During the 16th century, there used to be about 60 goldsmiths and 30 jewelers working in the palace ateliers from all over the world. And the Ottomans produced many kinds of objects, jeweled objects, like thrones or weapons, as well as objects for personal use. And now we will begin with the thrones, the most vivid items used. This is the golden throne in Topkapı Palace. I'm sure you have all visited the treasury in Topkapı Palace, and it's exhibited there. This is from the 17th century, and this is of walnut, and it can be dismantled into 10 pieces. Why? Just to be carried to any place the Sultan likes. Just like here, many sultans were depicted sitting on this throne, like Sultan Selim III here, sitting near the Bab-ı Saade. This is the 3rd gate of Topkapı Palace. This was a throne for ceremonies, state ceremonies, that is why. And it is encrusted with about 1,000 peridots, or they are called also olivines. The Turkish name for this stone is zebercet. It looks like emerald. It's no emerald, but it's a green stone, and a gemstone. And there you can observe a detail of the throne. And This is another object of the treasury, of the Sultan's treasury. This is a golden ceremonial flask for Sultan's drinking water. The shape of this flask is very interesting because it's in the shape of a molded leather flask encrusted with gemstones. Why a leather flask? We may interpret that that goes back to the nomadic origin of the Turks. But now, in the 16th century, it is not in leather, but in gold, as you see. This is a very typical, very characteristical object, object that mirrors the Sultan's pride. And this is also a ceremonial object, of course. So don't think that he used to drink every day from this flask. No, this is not the truth. Here, this is the glass, as you can imagine, and he used to use this only during ceremonies. And as you see, also in this detail, it is encrusted with rubies and emeralds, and there are also jade plugs like here in very typical Ottoman designs. Here you can also observe the stones. What do you think about the stones? This is also very characteristic. They are not perfect shaped. This reflects the tendency of the Ottomans, of Ottoman jewelers, because they were not inclined to interfere with the nature of the gemstones very much. So either they left them as cabochons or with minimum cutting, with table cutting. Anyway, here you can see more details of the same object. And here you can observe the very typical settings for gemstones. They were high colors, like the calyx of a flower of gold. You see here. You see, and they were called as rose-like. Gül resmi murassa is the Turkish saying for these settings, and they are very repetitive on many other objects. Like here, you see, this is a golden binding of Quran, again from the 16th century, and the same taste, the same designs are seen on these objects. There are many book bindings, many Quran bindings, jeweled Quran bindings, and this is only an example. Again with jade plugs, you see, and emeralds and rubies. And this is a pen box, a very cute, very elegant pen box. Pen boxes were important objects in Ottoman culture. And this is again in the treasury exhibited. I mean, you can go and see all those objects. And this is composed of pieces of rock crystal, and they are fitted with gold bands, and again encrusted with emeralds and rubies, and lined with blue painted paper. You see? This is paper. There. It's not easy to recognize it. You can recognize easily all the gemstones, but not this elegant paper. But it is the truth. Anyway, this is another characteristic, another typical object of the 16th century, a mirror, a rock crystal mirror with the solid jade handle here, with emeralds and the rubies. As you can see, during the 16th and 17th centuries, there was a very colorful taste for gemstones. The favorites were rubies and emeralds. There were also turquoises, we will see. Later on, we will discover then that for example, in the 18th century, they used to prefer more diamonds. Anyway, the 18th century is known for its splendor. And this is an example for this. This is a decorative pendant of rock crystal, solid rock crystal in shape of a flower here, and with a large, very large cabochon emerald. And now you can observe the rose-like setting here very good. Gül resmi murassa is the name. Those pendants, here another one, again from the 18th century, and a very spectacular one. They used to decorate high ceilings or domes. Just the object of decoration, yes. You like it? Anyway, I mean, not for today's homes, of course.
How big is that? I mean, is this
how big is that? Yeah. I mean, they are big. They are large ones. These emeralds, really. I think this is also exhibited today in the chambers of the treasury. I think so, right?
Yes, yes, there.
Yeah. Okay. So I think you all will go today or tomorrow. Don't go tomorrow. This is closed. Yes. On Tuesdays, Topkapı Palace is closed. Yes. And there is a long tassel of pearls. This is again another characteristic. Let us see. This is a cradle of walnut and encrusted with diamonds, rubies, and emeralds. As you see, many items of the treasury were in use, not hoarded only. This is another aspect of the Ottoman treasury. And and chessmen. As you know, playing chess was an old tradition. Still, it still is. And there are splendid chessmen in Sultan's treasury, like this one. They are of rock crystal and set with emeralds. And in this detail, you can observe again the very typical setting for gemstones. And there are many ceremonial weapons, like these ones. These are gold-plated bow case and quiver for arrows. And again, a very colorful composition, as you observe here. The gemstones were obtained from all over the world, such as diamonds, of course, from India, and rubies from Ceylon, and emeralds from Egypt, and pearls from Yemen, Arabia, and turquoises from Nishabur, Persia, Iran. And here, stirrups. They are gorgeous, right? You are right. They are decorated with all kinds of precious stones and pearls. Again, this is the splendor of the 18th century. Another ceremonial weapon, an iron mace, gold-plated, and encrusted with rubies and turquoises this time. And we can observe many kinds of jewelry on the portraits of the sultans. This is very interesting to see them mirrored in the portraits. Like this one. This is a painting by Levni depicting Sultan Selim I holding a very similar mace. Not the same one, we cannot say this. I wish we could, but it would be very nice to recognize the very same object. But anyway, this is a very similar one reflected here. And now you all know the typical settings, right? And the very famous dagger, the dagger. Yes, this is one of the most famous pieces in the treasury of Topkapı Palace, and many objects have their own stories, like this one. But first of all, we talk about the object, and then the story comes. This is a gold dagger, as you see, and encrusted with enormous emeralds here. This is one of the most precious objects of the world, actually.
How big are they?
How big are they?
Yeah, like this.
Let me
Must be.
like this.
Yeah.
Like this. I have to write the sizes there. Now I see. Anyway, this is a very interesting object. This is from the 18th century, as we say. Let's think about the 18th century. This is a time of transition. This is a time of new tendencies, of new interests here in the Ottoman Empire, as well as in Europe. They both are interested in each other, actually, and this is a very good example for the ideas of this century, because it's actually a very traditional object, a dagger, and traditional in form, of course, but in decoration. You see this enamel plate of stylized fruits. This reflects the new tendencies, and you see this is the detail of the pommel. An English watch is set in the pommel. So, and the story. A peace treaty was signed between the Ottomans and Persia. And the Ottoman Sultan Mahmud I, wanted to give him the most precious presents Ottoman Empire has ever offered to a foreign ruler. So this dagger was produced for this purpose. And an envoy, an Ottoman embassy was on the way to Persia. And the day they crossed the frontier to Persia, Nadir Shah, who was this gift intended to be given, was assassinated. And they came hastily back, and thanks God, it remains still in the Topkapı treasury. And here Sultan Mahmud I, who legitimate this object, is depicted probably holding the dagger. Of course, on such topics, you cannot say I'm sure, but as you see, this must be the dagger, I think. And of course, I'm very much interested in stories of jewels. So, this story I put into my first novel. And in every novel of mine, there is a story of jewelry. And in this one, of course, not that short. This is a chapter, actually, in this novel about this dagger. So, let's go on with jewelry to wear. First of all, turban ornaments. These are the most typical jewelry to wear, of course, in this sense. They are called egrets, in Turkish sorguç. And the most spectacular ones were used by the sultans, of course. This can be compared to crowns. And they were also used by state officials and harem ladies, but not that pompous as the rulers, of course, because this is something to be distinguished from all the other people to wear this. This is a comparably early example, 16th century. And this is actually a socket for plumes. The plumes, the feathers, come here. And these chains are for securing this object in the turban, of course. This is an old tradition, old Eastern tradition, actually. This does not belong only to the Ottomans. This is a common Eastern tradition. And here you can see also on this object the inclinations of the Ottoman jewelers. Look at the stones. They are not in perfect cuttings. They are just in natural shapes. This is another example from the 17th century. Here you can see a very fine enamel work. This is also very typical. And you can also observe here the shape of a tulip. Tulip was one of the favorite flowers in Turkish art, of course. And it does not appear only during the tulip era, but in all centuries. And this is a pompous example from the 18th century, from the splendor of the 18th century, again with large emeralds. They favored the large emeralds, cabochon emeralds, very much, as we can observe here. And this is with a plume, so you can see it better. And this is another one from the 18th century with lavish emeralds and a garnet. This is no ruby here, it's a garnet. And this is very much Eastern in shape. We don't know if it has come from India, let's say, but I don't think so. But they are inspired, the jewelers. The jewelers are must be inspired from the motifs from India. Here we can smell it here. You see, really a spectacular object this is. And since I love this object very much, I also made a story of this in one of my novels too. And this is a very typical aigrette again, with this tulip form here. And here you can see some of the sultans depicted wearing those aigrettes. Here Sultan Murad I on the helmet, and this is Sultan Osman the Young with 3 aigrettes again. This is Sultan Ahmet III, the Sultan of the Tulip era, with his 3 pompous aigrettes, and Sultan Mustafa III, again from the 18th century, with a very high aigrette. And this is the most famous piece. We always have to mention it in such a topic. This is the famous kaşıkçı or the spoonmaker's diamond in the treasury. This is 86 carats. And here Sultan Abdülhamid the first with this diamond wearing as an aigrette. So another story, of course, this has a story, many stories actually. There are many stories about this diamond. The story says, the most known story says that this diamond was found in a Habish in a suburb, and it was found by a spoonmaker, and then the chief treasurer of the Topkapı Palace has heard about it, and of course he acquired this diamond. The spoonmaker had only give a couple of spoons for this diamond to get this, but he sold it for much more money, of course, to the palace. The story says. Another story says that it has brought by an English officer from India. There are many stories, but anyway, it came to the treasury during the 17th century. This is for sure. And the surrounding diamonds here, there are 49. They were added during the 18th century. And this is obvious because this brilliant cut was first made during the 18th century, this cut.
Sorry, so the center stone is 86 carats?
Yeah, yeah. And it has a private story connecting with me. From how many years ago? Maybe 10 years ago, yes. I used to work on in a project about Ottoman Sultan portraits, and many of them were in the storage of the Topkapı Palace, and nobody had seen them. Then we made a big book and an exhibition. Anyway, and I worked on the 18th century sultans. And I saw this portrait for the first time, you know. And I said, look at this. This must be the spoonmaker's diamond. And until then, nobody knew that it was worn as an aigrette, you see. And I immediately wrote an article about it and said, here you see, it was worn by Sultan Abdülhamid I as an aigrette. You know, this is very important for us art historians, you know, and you cannot say that this is not an uneventful job, you see. And I was so happy and proud, you know, just to have seen this for the first time. Anyway, and so it was a must for me to put this story, not the story with me, but the story of that diamond into a chapter of my second novel. And he Sultan Abdülhamid I was one of the main characters of my second novel. As you see, for many years, I do only things that I enjoy. And this is one of them. So, it's a luxury, I know, but so, now aigrettes for ladies. This is a bride with 2 aigrettes on her red veil, you see, and displaying some of her trousseau. And this is another example from the Topkapı Treasury, a bridal aigrette with branches made of diamond rising like a sheaf of corn and held by a crescent and bow. This may symbolize fertility. This is again an interpretation only, but I think it is so. And again, examples on paintings with aigrettes. This is a lady painting, and this is a harem lady with full equipment, you see. Yeah, and I know you are looking at those. You know, it looks like a torture, but it's the reality. They used to walk on them. And aigrettes for horses to decorate the heads of the horses. Again from the 18th century, and with large cabochon, emeralds. Of course, they are intended only for sultan's horses, obviously. And this is another one. A diamond horse aigrette with a large citrine in the middle, in the center. This is a gift of Sultan Abdülhamid I, again, as you saw his portrait, for the Tsarina Catherine the Great of Russia, and it remains in the Kremlin Armory Museum now. But it's not on display. You have to go into the depot for seeing this. Anyway. And another very traditional form of jewelry, a tiara, a diamond tiara. This is a very, very old way of decorating ladies, because this word istefan, it is called istefan, those tiaras, in all the Ottoman archives. But this is this symbolizes such a bridge between cultures, because this word istefan, derives from an ancient Greek word, stephanophoros, and it means wearing a garland. So think how many thousands of years it has survived, this word, and it was changed into the Ottoman language, and it became istefan, but still it's the same. This is the continuity of a piece of jewelry, and this can be also worn as a necklace, as you can see. There are many examples also in European jewelry, but this is important. This idea of continuity is Stephanophoros into Stefan. And vibrating brooches. They are also very typical. Headgear brooches, they can also be worn on the chest, of course. This is in the shape of a bouquet. And here, there is a hidden spring, as you see. And it moves, it vibrates with the slightest movement of the head or of the body, and it, of course, looks gorgeous. This is from a private collection in Istanbul, not from the Topkapı Palace, and it belongs to a very nice lady, an old lady, and you know what? She wears them not every day, but let's say coming to us to dinner. You know, she wears it. This is nice, right? And Hülya, I think you made a replica of this one,
Yes,
right?
after this lecture,
You will see the replica of this.
yes, you can
And
see
the next
door.
apartment, yeah, yeah,
Next door
Yeah.
there is a
Yeah.
show.
yeah.
Showcasing.
Another vibrating brooch with diamonds and a baroque pearl as the body of the bird. And again, from this private collection.
Is it greenish as a natural color, or is it just a
No,
paint
no, it's
showing?
not, no, natural color.
It's white.
Greenish white, yes, yes.
Oh, okay.
Greenish, grayish, very interesting color. And again here, a spring that it vibrates. And brooches, very typical brooches with diamonds in the shape of a flower of gourd here, and a pair of violets. These are worn always as a pair. This is a tradition. And brooches like these, many Turkish families still have. I mean, as a heritage from the grandmother. I do have also. This is very common. This is again from the same private collection, and she wears this every day, I can tell you. This is in shape of a double tulip with this motif.
So how many carats is each?
Sorry?
How many carats is each of the big diamonds?
How?
How many carats? How big is?
I don't know. I don't know. I didn't ask her how many carats, but I love this object very much. Yeah.
How big is that again?
How big is that? This is that.
At least 2 carats.
Yeah,
Just 20.
yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah. Other examples of brooches with diamonds in the shape of a crescent. This is also very traditional, and stylized flowers. And here it's fun to see the same examples on paintings from the same era, and you can see how they were worn. You see?
So they will be wearing several ones.
Yeah, several. Sure, sure. And this is a Sultan's daughter, Fehime Sultan, standing behind her piano and wearing a diamond crescent on her hair, immediately on the hair. And this is again from a private collection, not that one. A very typical and a nice example. There are also many crescents in the families still. I have one from my grandmother, and many of my friends have such crescents. This is again a tradition.
It looks nearly like the Turkish half moon.
Yeah, sure. And the belts, they are indispensable parts. They used to be indispensable parts of the Ottoman ladies' outfit, and they had to fit rather plump bodies. So the ideal beauty then, of course. I wish it would continue. Anyway, unfortunately, not anymore. But they had to be jointed to fit the body. So you know, they all, or this one on the velvet. You know, they are also very typical examples. Ivory, and the material is ivory, and very fine workmanship you can see here. These are also displayed today in the treasury. And here you can see examples on portraits. Yes, as I said, you see, yeah. It has to fit such bodies, such beautiful, sexy bodies. Then, of course, you see the 17th century we are talking about. And this is Osman the Young with the golden belt. And the necklaces, of course, again indispensable pieces of jewelry. This is from an auction catalog, and similar necklaces. And this is a diamond collar on a lady of Istanbul, on the portrait of Favray. You can recognize many pieces of jewelry on paintings, and they can be valued. Those paintings can be valued also of visual documents. I use them also for as the visual documents. And the golden chain bracelets with diamond clasps. These are again from the same private collection, and actually such bracelets used to be worn as a pair at every the same at every arm. And earrings. They are mostly here with pear-shaped stones or pearls, as you see, and in a half-flower motif, half-flower shape earrings. They are, let me say it very personally, these are my favorite pieces of the Topkapı Treasury. They are also on display and they are gorgeous, I can see, I can tell you. Anyway, those emeralds, all pear-shaped emeralds. And here, you see, almost the same earrings you can recognize on Leibniz paintings. It's fun to see them, almost almost the same, so that we can tell that they are a very common and typical pieces. They must be very common pieces then. And these pear-shaped earrings, again emeralds, and you see almost the same here on the portrait. And here are rock crystal earrings. This is the front and the back. You see the back side. Again, a fine workmanship. And here, these are rare actually, in shape of a cluster of grapes. These are really rare things. I cannot say they are common. And they are again from the same collection and worn by this lady, by this old lady still. They are heavy actually, they are really heavy. This is front and back. Again of floral design. And diamond earring pendants in the simplest form of a flower, called the rose pendant, Gül küpe. We can say they are that again. It's a tradition to give every girl in the family a pair of this when she's get married. These are mine, you see, yeah, from the family. And here you can see a very typical scene. Many European painters have painted, have depicted Turkish ladies in connection with jewelry, and they were right. And again, now rings. Here, a diamond ring with enamel. This is called the nail of the Supreme Court, Divanhane çivisi, because of the resemblance to a head of a nail. Again, from the this collection, this enamel. This is interesting because this is not typical, but the shape of this ring is very typical. Again, here this is mine from the family. You can find it again in many families here. And this is called baklava. I'm sure you all know baklava because of the resemblance of their forms to a sweet dish. This is cut in this form, this sweet dish, baklava. It's called baklava ring, baklava yüzük. And this is a so-called rose ring because of its resemblance to a full-blown rose. And here, a ring case of hematite with rubies. This is a jewel itself, actually, you see, a real jewel itself. And archery rings. They were called zekgir, and they were intended to protect the thumb while archery. You see, they are carved of jade, and again you see from the 16th century, again with rubies, and here with an emerald, and the same settings you can recognize on those small objects. And jewelry can be a medium to reflect some characteristics of the sitter of a portrait, like here. Here you see Mehmet II, Sultan Mehmet II, Mehmet the Conqueror, who conquered Istanbul. He's sitting and smelling a rose. So a very peaceful and sophisticated ruler. But at the same time, you see, he is wearing an archery ring. At the same time, a real warrior. You see, in a very sophisticated way of saying this. And a very typical Turkish lady, here by Lyotard. As you mentioned, she is wearing many kinds of jewelry, various pieces at the same time. This is an Ottoman lady. If you compare this to a European lady, a European lady wears everything in sets, in matching sets. But this is not valid for an Ottoman lady. She used to like to wear many kinds of jewelry at the same time. And again, an Ottoman lady connected with jewelry, depicted in jewelry, like this one, harem ladies choosing jewelry from the chest of an ambitious jewelry seller. This is actually a timeless image, because still today we want to be like this, and we never renounce some pieces, at least some pieces of jewelry. Thank you.